Hello and good evening. Welcome to KTN Prime. Thank you so much for joining us today. I'm Nancy KITENGELA.
My name is Wilson Uhuru, and tonight we have a great bulletin lined up for you. This is certainly KTN Prime.
And of course, the biggest news that we have today, the wait is finally over and the speculation has been put to rest. Uhuru Muigai Kenyatta will go to The Hague after all.
But that development is not without a twist. Uhuru has now invoked a never-before-used article in the Constitution to appoint his deputy William Ruto as the acting president of this country.
Now tonight we have lined up a comprehensive coverage of this historic set of events. Of course, we do have a detailed analysis from right here in Nairobi, and we'll also have various reactions from parts of the country.
Here in Nairobi, our senior reporter Rita Tinina will be live shortly with the latest details of that temporary power transfer. While in Kisumu, some of the victims of the 2008 post-election violence will be weighing in on that debate.
And also in the North Rift, we've got our senior reporter Mercy Kandia. She's been speaking to a group of elders. They're making a special prayer for the president. We're going to be telling you about that. And here in studio, we've got Linda Ogutu. She'll be having a dynamic panel of analysts. Linda, this is, of course, we're expecting this to be a very vibrant discussion. Who are you going to host tonight?
So before I tell you who I will be speaking to tonight, let's focus on the big story of the day. My conscience is and has always been clear. I am innocent of all the allegations. Those were the words of President Uhuru Kenyatta today as he invoked Article 147 of the Constitution, thereby giving presidential powers in an acting capacity, of course, to Deputy William Ruto. What does this mean for the country? Of course, this coming on the backdrop of the agreement by African Union that no sitting head of state should present himself at the International Criminal Court. Question is, has he now set a precedent, not just for the continent, but its leaders? We'll be seeking to answer some of those questions. In studio, I will be speaking to Elisha Ngoya, an advocate of the High Court, Johnson Sakaja, TNA chairman, and George Kegore, executive director, International Commission of Jurists. We'll try and see if we can answer some of the questions that are on the minds of Kenyans. But first, let's take a look at the highlights tonight.
I will shortly issue the legal notice necessary to appoint Honorable William Ruto, the Deputy President, as acting president while I attend the status conference.
Deputy President William Ruto is now acting president as Uhuru heads to The Hague.
Rais wetu atakuwa covered, tumempatia yeye covering.
And seeking divine intervention, special prayers for the president ahead of his date with The Hague.
Also, the culprits of the MPEKETONI killings, revelations of an independent investigation.
And African Union troops capture a key Al-Shabaab town. Well, let's begin. Our sign language interpreter is Meresha Owiti. As we said, we do begin with a very historic move. President Uhuru Kenyatta this evening appointed his deputy William Ruto as acting president.
Now, through an executive order, Uhuru made the unprecedented move to enable him attend a status conference at the International Criminal Court in his own personal capacity and not as the President of the Republic of Kenya.
Now, Uhuru had earlier addressed a special sitting of Parliament after holding talks with the National Security Council and the Cabinet.
Rita Tinina has the details.
Well, a really unprecedented move by Uhuru Kenyatta. He kept everyone guessing. There was a lot of speculation, some saying that he will snub the summons by the International Criminal Court, others saying that he will go to The Hague and make history by becoming the first ever sitting head of state to appear before judges at the International Criminal Court. But, as you will see in the following report, Uhuru Kenyatta seems to have wrong-footed even the best analysts in the country who have been weighing the Hague options in the last couple of days.
As had been widely anticipated, President Uhuru Kenyatta's address to the special joint sitting of Parliament had everything to do with the case against him at the International Criminal Court over the 2007-2008 post-election violence.
My conscience is clear, has been clear, and will remain forever clear that I am innocent of all the accusations that have been leveled against me.
The 23-minute speech focused on Kenya's achievements and plans for the future, but it was big on one subject, Kenya's sovereignty. Last week, the ICC summoned Uhuru Kenyatta to appear before it for a status conference and dismissed an application by his defense team seeking to have him skip the session or appear via video link.
Nothing in my position or my deeds as president warrants my being in court.
With speculation over whether or not the president would honor the summons, Uhuru Kenyatta was faced with a dilemma: to either become the first ever sitting head of state to appear before the court, or to defy the court altogether and become an international fugitive. The president settled for a third way that seems to have escaped many analysts.
That I chose not to put the sovereignty of more than 40 million Kenyans on trial, since their democratic will should never be subject to another jurisdiction. Let it not be said that I am attending the status conference as the President of the Republic of Kenya. So to all those who are concerned that my personal attendance of the status conference compromises the sovereignty of our people or sets a precedent for the attendance of presidents before the court, be assured this is not the case.
What followed was even more unexpected.
To appoint Honorable William Ruto, the Deputy President, as acting President while I attend the status conference at The Hague in the Netherlands.
Uhuru Kenyatta is asking for acceptance from Kenyans over his decision.
I urge my fellow citizens to accept and to understand my decision.
With just hours to the big date with judges at the ICC, Uhuru made good his word. At Harambee House, he put pen to paper, signing an executive order appointing his deputy, William Ruto, as acting president while he is away. And it took effect immediately. Uhuru Kenyatta left Harambee House without the trappings of power that come with the title head of state. And minutes later, William Samoei Ruto was as presidential as they come, as he left with all that comes with a big office, complete with outriders and the presidential standard on his limousine. It will be the first time that the country will have a president in an acting capacity, a historic and unprecedented move, one that will no doubt be a subject of discussion in coming days as Uhuru Muigai Kenyatta faces judges at the ICC. Rita Tinina, KTN, Nairobi.
Well, that story, of course, forms the big question for us tonight, and we are asking, was it necessary for President Uhuru Kenyatta to hand over power to Ruto before heading to The Hague? Was it necessary for President Uhuru Kenyatta to hand over power to Ruto before heading off to The Hague?
That's right, that historic address today. We began it with one president and ended it with another. We'd like to find out from you whether you feel that this was indeed necessary. Of course, there have been opinions that this was necessary because the president needs to attend that trial on a personal level. Well, let us know what you think, and you can do that by tweeting us at KTN Kenya, at Kachingira, at Wilson_Mburu. You can also send us an SMS 22155. We'd love to hear from you, find out what your opinions are, and also when you tweet us, you can use the hashtag #TheHagueDate. We'll be looking at some of your feedback later.
Now, President Uhuru Kenyatta's move to attend the status conference at The Hague was largely welcomed by both the public and members of the 11th Parliament. And as KTN's Ian Wafula now reports, many of them have vowed to stand in solidarity with the head of state.
As time drew closer to President Uhuru Kenyatta's long-awaited address at Parliament, hundreds stood by the streets along Parliament Road. Speculation was widespread over the agenda of the meeting. This, as a notable number of members of the opposition opted to skip the joint special sitting.
The only time the president can call for a sitting of parliament is after the first general election under the constitution. That is the only time. So what is happening right now is what the president did is very unprocedural.
I have not gotten any information from our coalition not to attend the meeting. But I think most fundamentally, the president is coming to parliament as the president of Kenya, not in his individual capacity. And if you look at the constitution, what the law says is that the president may address, parliament at any time.
I now take the extraordinary and unprecedented step.
And once the president announced that he shall be leaving for The Hague, his decision was largely welcomed, many terming it as a bold and selfless move. With me here is a passport belonging to Wanjiku Mu here from Women Rep Nyandarua County. You're ready to travel to The Hague?
Yes, as you can see, this is my ticket, and I'm leaving Kenya at 22:50. That means tomorrow I shall be at Hague waiting for the president, because it's crystal clear that he's going to The Hague.
I think I must commend our president because of that the step he has taken today. Actually, we have seen what we call a true statesman, because you can see he's one person who is putting everything as far as this nation is concerned. He's putting the interests of the nation first.
Amezungumza kama kiongozi, amezungumza kututoa hofu, amezungumza na ujasiri kutuonesha ni kila mtu aweze kufuata sheria.
Away from the corridors of power, the same sentiments were shared across members of the public.
Nafurahi sana kuona kwamba president rais amekubali kwenda kule Hague ICC, kwa sababu hiyo ndiyo ilikuwa wasiwasi yetu wa Kenya, kwa sababu kama hangelienda pengine tungekuwa na warrant of arrest na Kenya hatungefanya biashara popote.
It's very good for the president to attend the case in ICC. This shows that he is abiding by the law and is showing a good example.
President Uhuru Kenyatta is expected to leave the country Tuesday to attend to the status conference at the International Criminal Court that has been scheduled for Wednesday. Ian Wafula, KTN.
Now here's an interesting bit. Only as recently as yesterday, Ruto was quoted as saying that the troubles and tribulations at the ICC would not bother him much because, well, he had a boss to whom he could run to. Well, today, he's that boss.
Mimi saa zingine mambo pia yakiwa mazito sana, nafikiria, nalala, napinduka, lakini mwisho nasema at least niko na mdosi anaitwa Uhuru Kenyatta, yeye atabambana, ikinizidi atamenyana naye. Lakini yeye sasa maneno yakizidi sana hana mdosi mwingine. Sasa mdosi ambaye amebaki kwake ni Mungu peke yake.
So it does look there like Ruto now hana mdosi mwingine, he has to go straight to God.
But the thing is, even with him being the mdosi, it does not exactly it has its own limitations, doesn't it?
It does. Well, let's actually take a look at that right now, because of course this has garnered a lot of interest, and let me bring your attention to this hashtag that's been running on Twitter, things President Ruto should address. Now, just minutes after this announcement, this hashtag was already running. If you can see some of the tweets here, one from Ben Alex, who says, ban the use of the phrase Serikali Saidia and replace it with Saidia Serikali. He's saying that's one of the things that President Ruto should address. Another one here from Yukiko. He says, rename Uhuru Highway and Uhuru Park to Ruto Highway and Ruto Park. Might confuse a lot of people. Another one here from Tony Kiguta. Now he says, someone had better enlighten Kenyans on how to address Ruto. Otherwise, expect drama in public meetings. And you can just see that, can't you? Well, this is the hashtag things President Ruto should address. And yes, most of them really are tongue-in-cheek. But it does signify that a lot of people are taking interest in this move. And a lot of people are trying to understand, so what does it mean that we now have an acting president? Well, let's break that down. First of all, let's take a look at the authority of the president. So whoever it is, the president is the head of state and government. He's also the commander-in-chief of the Kenya Defense Forces and the chairperson of the National Security Council. So basically, today, as of this moment, President Ruto is the head of state and government and all these other things. However, there is a limit to what he can and cannot do. Let's start with what he is not able to do. Even though he has taken up this mantle, he is not able to nominate or appoint judges of the superior courts, okay? Also, he is not able to nominate or appoint any other public official. And if we go forward, we can also see that he cannot nominate, appoint, or even dismiss cabinet secretaries and other state or public officers, and this does include diplomatic representatives as well. So basically, hiring and firing is off the table. This is not something that the acting president will be able to do. Let's take a look at what else he can't do. He cannot exercise the power of mercy. This is one of the things that the president is able to do. He is able to pardon people who are convicted of an offense or reduce their sentences. Well, this is something that the acting president cannot do. Also, he is not able to confer honors in the name of the people and the republic, which usually the president is able to do. So that's what he can't do. Let's take a look at what he can do. Well, one, he may address parliament at any time that he wishes. And of course, this is something that President Uhuru Kenyatta did today. Acting President Ruto will be able to do that. He will also be able to chair cabinet meetings. He will be able to direct and coordinate ministries and government departments. And he will be able to receive foreign diplomatic and consular representatives, as we can see in this next slide. And this is a very interesting one. Even though he can't really hire and fire anyone, he can actually declare a state of emergency according to Article 58. And guess what? With the approval of Parliament, he can declare war if needs be. So much as there are some limitations, there's actually still a lot that the acting president can do. And that's what it looks like, Wilson, in terms of what exactly is the acting president able to do and what is he not able to do.
All the trappings of powers, but with their limitations as well.
Yes, exactly.
But the one component that we forget is the post-election violence victims. And we go to Kisumu live, where Fred Omulo is on standby. A very good evening to you, Fred. Various reactions coming from Kisumu. What do the people of Kisumu have to say about the president's decision tonight?
Good evening, Wilson. Thank you very much for hosting me in this news. I have a tale of 3 IDPs who were uprooted from different sections of the country. One is from Nakuru, one was uprooted from here in Kisumu, and another was from Limuru and kicked out and ended up here in Kisumu. Now, these people are euphemistically referred to as integrated IDPs, people who left the places where they had settled. Some were born out there, particularly the person in Nakuru was born out there. They lost investments, they were kicked out by especially members of the Mungiki, and they've ended up here in Kisumu. And since they are referred to as integrated IDPs, they have not had any compensation given to them, any justice, or any reference by the official authorities around here. They look as though they never existed in the first place. Here is the story. Thank you.
Among the ramshackle kiosks that line Kisumu's bus park is an electrician who on the surface looks like any other small trader working in the section. But it wasn't always like this for Nelson Owegi. He was once a successful businessman in Limuru, where he operated an electronic spare parts business and ran a college for budding electricians. At the height of the violence, he lost all of this and barely escaped with his life.
Kutoka wakati huo nilirudi hapa nikiwa na mkono mtupu. Wakati huo hata bibi yangu akafariki juu ya mambo kama hayo. Kwa hivyo haya yote iliniadhiri makubwa sana. Mpaka wa leo hakuna kitu chochote ambayo niko naye. Mimi niko na njaa kila wakati, mimi hakuna chochote ambayo niko naye.
Owegi's biggest sin at the time was being the chairman of ODM in Limuru, a party that was then locked in a life-or-death struggle with former President Kibaki's PNU party. For exercising his democratic rights, members of the outlawed Mungiki sect paid him a visit that transformed him into a pauper, as as more than 2.5 million shillings in property and stock was razed. Were it not for the timely intervention of the district commissioner, he would have died.
Kwa vile tunaishi ya kwamba ni kama second hand people katika nchi hii, tunaonekana mambo yale yote ambayo inafanyika ya IDPs, inafanyika Central Province, inafanyika kule Rift Valley, lakini sisi ambao tulikuja Nyanza inaonekana kama tulisikwa katika kaburi ya sahau.
One of Owegi's closest friends is Maureen Opondo, who was also evicted from Nakuru. Born and bred in the thriving town, she operated a wholesale shop and a quarry in Subukia, but lost all her belongings in the orgy of violence.
Ilipotimia siku hiyo ya 26 of January, kulikuja Mongiki, walikuja kutumaliza. Watu majirani na marafiki kutoka dukani wakakuja kuniambia, Mama Beni, kwa Mongiki leo wanakuja na hawajui tufanye nini, tafuteni pa kukimbilia. Nikawaambia mimi sina pa kukimbilia kwa sababu already niko kiwete, sina mguu, nilikuwa na road accident.
Among Kisumu's IDPs is Milton Osoro, who hails from Kisii County but was educated and settled in Kisumu. He lost 18 houses in the lakeside city after everything was torched. Today, he makes a living trading eggs.
Since that time, we have been meeting, we have got a committee, and so many people are just expecting and waiting for something to happen. We have seen nothing. What's now happening, or where the attention has been diverted to, is that who is going to the Hague? People are defending who is to go or who is not to go.
After all is said and done, the three just want justice and compensation.
Jambo lenye ninaomba kama Maureen kwa niaba ya waadhiriwa, hata kama ni state house tutapelekwa tuishi, kwa sababu hata landlord wanatufukuza. Watu wanapewa 400,000, watu wanajengewa, watu wanapewa mashamba. Sisi hakuna kenye inatufikia. Tunakaa kama watoto hawana yatima, hawana baba wala mama.
Almost 7 years after the post-election violence and with the case against the president at The Hague facing collapse, it is as though nothing ever happened. Fredo Mulo, KTN, Kisumu City.
Well, that report from Kisumu makes a very important point. It does seem as though the victims have been forgotten in this whole debate of whether to go to The Hague or not. Well, let's look at another dimension of this story now. We go to Mercy Kandie, who is in Eldoret. And something interesting is happening, Mercy, in Eldoret, isn't it? Can you tell me about these traditional prayers for President Uhuru?
Yes, indeed, Nancy, thank you very much. And it should also be noted that the North Rift continues to play a very critical role, much as ICC, not only because some of the areas within the North Rift region were violence hotspot, but because also the North Rift region, in essence, Uasin Gishu County, is home not only to some of the victims, but also some of the witnesses that are with matters ICC. And today, something interesting was happening. There was a prayer meeting held at the Nandi grounds within Eldoret town, and these prayers were made specifically as President Uhuru Kenyatta traveled to The Hague. Prayers that were performed by traditional elders, religious leaders, political leaders, and especially the women. Look at this story. It can be termed as the highest appeal any Kalenjin woman can make. Sasura traditional women raise this piece of skin known as legetio, what is used traditionally to support and shield pregnancy, tied around the waist. And the prayers being made here, they say, is to ask that Uhuru Kenyatta be shielded in the same manner. It is at the Nandi Gardens in Eldoret town at a prayer meeting attended by religious, political and local leaders, one held purposely to pray for the president before he attends a status conference at the International Criminal Court.
So, msegeduka shika hapo mwisho. This is symbolic performance. Kwamba rais wetu atakuwa covered, tumempatia yeye covering.
A covering from the Kalenjin and Kikuyu Council of Elders in what is meant to protect the dignity of the president as he attends the Hague hearing.
That is to say, may he be covered by an item that cannot be penetrated by the arrows of the enemy.
Kwa sababu hii safari ilianzishwa na Mungu na Mungu lazima aikamilishe, hatuwezi kuicut short.
And we are also telling him God says he knows the plans he has for you. For I know the plans I have for you, Uhuru Kenyatta. Plans to prosper you.
Tunasimama pamoja na rais wetu, tunasimama pamoja na makamu wake.
The meeting held Monday morning in Eldoret town, one of the violent hotspots after the disputed general election of 2007, and the leaders here using the same platform to warn the residents and counsel the youth against violence.
Tuseme never again turudia tabia mbaya kama ya 2007 2008. Tuko pamoja.
The leaders called on the residents to be patient and uphold peace throughout the court process. Masi Kandia, KTN, Eldoret, Uasin Gishu County.
So this story, it's a big story, it's a historic event, it's bound to get a lot of reactions, varied reactions, and tonight we as KTN Prime have decided that we're going to go big on it.
Absolutely. And as we mentioned earlier, we've got Linda Ogutu in studio, and she will be speaking to a panel who can answer some of those questions for us that have been coming up. What is the wider significance of this event? And what choices did Uhuru have as he made this decision as well? Isn't that so, Linda?
Indeed, Nancy, those are some of the questions we'll be seeking to answer later on. Just immediately after your bulletin, I will be speaking to a panel of three. That is Elisha Ongoya, an advocate of the High Court, George Kigore, Executive Director, International Commission of Jurists, and of course, Johnson Sakaja, Chairman Tiere, who's here with me. Quickly, briefly, what are your thoughts on what the President did today?
If I could describe it in 3 words, Solomonic, brave, and selfless.
Solomonic, brave, selfless.
Yes.
This discussion continues right after this bulletin. Let me hand you back to Nancy and Wilson for a look at the top stories.
Certainly an interview to look forward to, but before we go on a break, let's remind you of our big question tonight. We've actually changed our big question tonight, and we are asking, do you support the President's move to appoint his deputy William Ruto as the acting president as he heads off to The Hague? Do you support the President's move to appoint William Ruto as the acting president as he heads off to The Hague?
That's right. Let us know if you agree that this was a brave and heroic move, and you can do that by tweeting us at Katchingira, at Wilson_Mburu, at KTN Kenya, or send us an SMS 22155. Do start with a yes or no so that we can compile your responses into a poll result later in this bulletin. We're going for a quick break, but don't go too far. We'll be right back.
Just ahead, COTU suspends Atwali's deputy over betrayal claims. You're watching KTN Prime.
Welcome back. You're watching KTN Prime.
Now, poor coordination among the police while responding to the attacks in MPEKETONI in June this year led to unnecessary loss of lives.
That's right, and this is according to a report released today by the Independent Policing Oversight Authority, IPOA.
The body has further faulted the police units for not acting on the information about threats of the attack that were provided to them by the National Intelligence Service since 2013.
Sharon Momanyi has the details.
3 months after the attacks in MPEKETONI and Witu areas in Lamu, attacks that saw over 100 people killed, the Independent Police Oversight Authority has released a damning report indicating that police in Lamu had intelligence information of pending attacks in MPEKETONI and neighboring villages. But despite this information being provided, the police failed to act to prevent the attacks.
A full-time command post operation center was not established to coordinate the follow-up operation. The Administration Police Rapid Deployment Unit left the Mkunubi base, which is only about 16 kilometers from MPEKETONI. They arrived in MPEKETONI at midnight, but remained out of sight.
The report, compiled after interviews were conducted on police officers as well as residents of MPEKETONI, also revealed that there was an anti-terror police officer based at Witu who was allegedly coordinating the activities of armed smugglers, said to be Al-Shabaab operatives.
The arms were brought in from Liboi, under the protection and escort of that police officer.
The report indicts senior police officers for giving contradicting orders, blaming the lack of a clear chain of command during the incident for the uncoordinated operation by junior police officers, stating that there was a confusion regarding who was in charge of the operation. This confusion is said to have resulted in friction between the national and county commanders. The report also found the officers under-equipped, therefore unable to adequately respond to the attacks.
Inquiries by IPOA, without any doubt, ascertained that there was National Intelligence Service reports dating as far back as July 2013, which specifically reported that affiliate members of a known outlawed group intended to carry out attacks on particular communities in Lamu County.
Among its 19 recommendations, IPOA recommends setting up of a full operations center to harmonize the command structure of all regions, as well as recognizing the police officers who performed well during the operation. Sharma Mani, KTN.
Let's move over to labor matters. And the Central Organization of Trade Unions COTU Executive Board have voted to oust its Deputy Secretary General George MUCHAI and replaced him with Benson Okwiri Okumu in an acting capacity. In a meeting held at Lake Bogoria Resort, 26 members of the Executive Board unanimously voted to remove MUCHAI, who is also the Kabete MP, a day after allegations of irregularities surfaced in the press. COTU Secretary General Francis Atwoli said the board suspended his deputy after he acted contrary to COTU constitution and chose to serve partisan political interests.
That is, from today, is the assistant positions executive board of COTU has filled as ameenda kinyume cha umoja unaokadiriwa katika katiba yetu na anafaa atuondokee haraka. Na hii bodi imemtoa kabisa, yeye atakuwa na nafasi ya kuappeal kwa governing council. So he's free if he has any credible evidence against Francis Atwoli. He's free to move to any police station to anti-corruption, to the CID, and report me. I'm ready to be arrested if I committed offense, if he so wishes.
Let's remind you of our big question tonight, and we are asking, of course, do you support the president's move to appoint William Ruto, who is the deputy president, in an acting capacity as the president? Let's take some of your views. Ben Kibe here, very interesting tweet here from Ben Kibe. He says, as the Rift Valley, we are proud to have two presidents now, the longest serving, 24 years, that is, of course, President Moi, and shortest, 48 hours.
That's an interesting observation that he makes there. There's a tweet here from Ramat Morintat, who says, yes, I do support that. Uhuru just scored 10 out of 10 even before the status conference begins. My office is not my shield.
Well, keep your comments coming. The number is 22155. That's the SMS line. At Wilson_Mburu at Kachungira. Don't you go away, take a short break. But after that, business is up next.
The lack of well-drafted laws in the sector is the main cause of recent conflict among the interested parties.
Late last year, exploration firm Tullow Oil was forced to suspend its activities in parts of Turkana following protests by local communities. The concern of the residents was that Tullow had failed to offer them job opportunities or even consider them for tenders. These events reveal just how much local communities are interested in Kenya's relatively small and undeveloped extractive sector. It's for this reason that industry observers led by British High Commission to Kenya are calling on the government to draw up the rules of engagement between oil prospectors, the government and the local communities.
It is inherent on the three, the county government, the central government and the community, to set up their expectations in concert.
Oil prospecting firms such as Tullow Oil have invested billions of shillings in corporate social responsibility activities in Turkana. However, this has raised the question of how exactly the firms plan to share oil revenue. The feeling has been while CSR was crucial to the industry, revenue sharing to the county would be the best tool to lift its economy. The British High Commission has challenged Kenya to sign up the Extractive Industries Transparency Initiative employed by Nigeria, Tanzania and Mozambique to help tackle corruption while ensuring that everyone is enjoying the economic benefits of natural resources.
So the government, the investor, the community, civil society all have a voice in articulating how the benefit is going to flow.
In its camp, the government is developing the exploration bill, which will set the stage for growing local content in the sector in terms of skilled and semi-skilled labor and promote synergies between all entities involved. It is also laying the legal framework for managing the revenues expected from oil and gas ventures by drafting the Kenya National Sovereign Wealth Fund Bill. Charles Gitonga, KTN.
And Kenyan investors stand to win big as the country looks to the capital markets to raise billions of dollars needed to jumpstart massive infrastructure projects. This comes as traditional avenues of finance reduce, forcing developers to turn to the local capital markets and the private sector to finance massive developments in energy and transport infrastructure across the region. With more than 4 trillion shillings needed to finance energy, transport and infrastructure projects, the Nairobi Securities Exchange says it has the potential to raise the desired capital. According to NSC participants, the last 2 years have seen renewed interest in the bourse from both foreign and local investors. Centum Investments is charting the course in tapping the capital markets to raise funds. The investment firm is seeking to raise 177 billion shillings for the 970 megawatt coal plant in Lamu, with the NSC its primary source for capital.
It was always the World Bank. And that's why we always used to get stuck. At least now we have the private sector, we have bonds, we can be able to raise money in the market and be able at least to fast track the projects.
What you're seeing is significant growth of a middle class and a consumer class. And that creates opportunities across a whole host of sectors that did not exist before.
Efforts to arbitrate between rivaling sugar millers West Kenya and Butali sugar mills of Kakamega County started on a sour note today. Officials from West Kenya Sugar Company failed to turn up at the arbitration hearing scheduled for Monday. The latest development now set the stage for continued tussles that have threatened to scuttle the sugar industry in Western Kenya. West Kenya Sugar has been in and out of court accusing Butali of cane poaching that had greatly affected its business. This has in turn raised questions of the validity of the milling license issued to Butali. Sugar stakeholders and leaders from Kakamega County gathered under the auspices of the Agriculture, Fisheries and Food Authority. The AFA meeting followed a directive by the Kisumu Court of Appeal for the body to bring the two millers to a round table for discussions that would help find a lasting solution to the current wrangles. And Kenya wants to become an industrialized nation by the year 2030. But last week, the country witnessed the closure of Eveready's factory in Nakuru, while Cadbury announced that it would also be closing its chocolate factory at the end of the month. So is this the start of the end for Kenya's manufacturing dreams, or is this a bump on the road? Adelaide Chingole explores.
Last week, Eveready closed its factory in Nakuru after a deluge of counterfeits ate into its market share and saw the factory operate at 25% capacity. 98 workers lost their jobs at the drop of a hat. 4 days later, chocolate maker Cadbury's also announced that it would cease manufacturing its drinking chocolate and cocoa products in Kenya and would close its factory by the end of the month. And just like Eveready, Cadbury will import its product from Egypt to sell locally. Another 300 employees will then lose their jobs. The two are the latest in a series of farms to pack their proverbial bags and head to greener pastures within the region. And this has raised a pertinent question. Why is Kenya losing ground to other countries such as Egypt and Ethiopia?
Ethiopia, Egypt have very large domestic markets, and those do tend to contribute significantly to an attraction of a market when you're making an assessment.
However, Eric says there is a silver lining to the trend, with local manufacturers filling in the gap.
The likes of Bidco has also grown quite strongly. If you look at BAT in Kenya, it manufactures for 16 countries.
And he says the government should become more innovative to encourage the growth of such homegrown farms so as to realize its goal of becoming an industrialized nation by 2030 while creating employment opportunities for the thousands of jobless youth.
Kenjan was talking about creating an industrial hub in Naivasha. Makes a lot of sense. Generate power and be able to create a zone where manufacturers can add value within the same location.
But even then, he says both businesses and government must take cognizance of the changing regional and international environment and adapt their practices to survive in the new world order.
The risks that are abound are quite heavy. If you look at the tourism sector, already struggling. The recent development with regards to Europe, affecting almost a quarter of our exports.
Adelaide Chongole, KTN Business.
Thanks, Adelaide. Now, the Wananchi Group has secured 11.6 billion shillings raised from existing and new shareholders to fund its expansion drive. The company is set to invest the cash in expanding its fiber optic network to cover more homes in more cities across the region. The funds come at an opportune time for the company with the global digital migration deadline looming. The Wananchi Group is a paid television and high-speed internet operator. The capital investment was led by shareholders including Altice and Liberty Global, as well as new investors, Helios Investment Partners. And we'll now take a look at how your money did work for you, how the Kenya shilling performed, and also the stock markets. And that's it for Business Tonight. Do join me again tomorrow. My name is Joy Doreen Bira. Good evening.
Welcome back. You're watching KTN Prime. Welcome to KTN Sports. Let's move on. The draw for the Airtel IMPALA Floodlit Rugby Tournament is already out, with organizers announcing the quarterfinal pairings for the club, universities, as well as the schools categories. Meanwhile, David Owila will replace Cyprian Kuto in the upcoming first leg of the IRB series, the Gold Coast Sevens.
Defending champions in the club category, KCB, have been drawn against host Resolution IMPALA in the club quarterfinals, with last year's beaten finalist Total Nondis paired against Mean Machine. The other quarterfinal pairings pit Lunchback Queens against Mwamba RFC, with defending Kenya Cup champions Top Fry Nakuru facing Homeboys RFC. Kenyatta University's Black Blood, who are the varsity defending champions, will play Daystar. Catholic Monks will be up against Mount Kenya University. Former champions USIU battle it out with Technical University, while University of Nairobi played JQAT. Meanwhile, Cyprian Kuto, who sustained a facial injury during the National Sevens team training in South Africa, will be replaced by Michael Owila in the first leg of the IRB series in the Gold Coast Sevens that kicks off later this week. Elsewhere, Amin Daji's 3 rare birdies sunk in both nines were enough to steer him to victory in the 2014 Standard County Classic Golf Tournament played at the Pass 71 Nyali Golf and Country Club course in Mombasa. He posted 39 Stableford points to match the overall winner in the day-long 18-hole Stableford tournament sponsored by the Standard Group. In the Kenyan Premier League, defending league champions Gor Mahia 4 points clear at the helm of the table after the round of weekend matches. Kogalo is on 51 points ahead of Sofapaka, who are on 47 points. Tusker are on 45 points, while Ulinzi Stars wraps up the top 4 at 41 points. All teams have played a total of 26 matches. Lane Washira, KTN Sports.
National soccer team Harambee Stars began camp Monday morning at the Kasarani National Stadium under the new coach Bobby Williamson. The 31-member squad, which was named on Friday, will be at the sports facility ahead of an international friendly match against Morocco scheduled for Monday the 13th. The home-based players, a majority of whom took part in league matches over the weekend, will be in residential training, while the foreign-based players will link up with the final team on 8th October. The Ujuzi Soccer Academy has entered into a partnership with Kennedy School to tap soccer talent. The partnership will benefit both boys and girls who are talented and have nowhere to play, as there is no ground for the youth to play despite the demand for such activity. The program will target children between the ages of 8 and 18 who come to receive professional football training at the academy. The program will also see talented children go for international football tournaments in Europe. Uhuru Kenyatta has decided that he is going to the ICC, is going to the Hague, and we did ask you whether you support his move to appoint William Ruto as the acting president as he heads off to the Hague, and the results are in an overwhelming support for the president.
That's right. 85% say yes, they do support the president's move. Only 15% say no. I'm going to read your SMSs tonight. One here from Wanguche in Mumias. Thank you for giving us your opinion. You say that it is constitutional as his journey is clouded with uncertainty and the outcome is not completely predictable.
Victor MK here says, yes, I totally support the president's move. A wise statesman for you.
Okay. And one here from Lusiri in Kakamega, Laban Lusiri. He says, no, there is no need because Ruto has not even been mandated to fire and hire. On the other hand, Ruto could use this chance to overthrow Uhuru's government because his case seems to be serious compared to Uhuru's.
Some very serious concerns here from that one, huh?
Apparently, yes.
Yeah, Laszlo Lawrence at Laszlo Lawrence here says a different angle to this one. He says, what about the victims? Are they forgotten as we make son of this little candlelight of Uhuru's Hague cases?
One here from Pascal Katambo. He says, I do support the president in totality. No one has done anything like this world over. He is a true statesman.
Thank you very much for all your responses. Remember, this conversation continues on Twitter. You can get us on hashtag the Hague date. Remember that Linda Ogutu is standing by with the panel to discuss this particular issue and how it affects our country, how it affects your future.
That's right. In studio tonight, she will be hosting 3 panelists, and some of those tough questions that still linger, hopefully we'll be able to get answers to those.
From all of us here, enjoy the rest of your viewing.
I'm Nancy Kachingira. Good night.